Hello, dear friends. The following is a conversation I had the privilege and honor of being invited on as a guest to the Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth, hosted by James Cordiner and joined by guest and good friend Will Keller. In this absolutely epic conversation, we dove deeply into the fundamental concept of animism and what it truly means to reunite with nature. This is a rich topic, so this is one you don't want to miss. Make sure you watch all the way to the end, and I hope you enjoy.
Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Today is June 6th, 2023, and we have a very special show lined up for this evening. My name is James Cordiner. You're watching A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. My website is freeyourmindne.com. And so tonight, I want to just tell everybody that for too long, we have turned our backs to nature. There has been a devastatingly uneven trade for our connection to nature, and this artificial surrounding that we have received has done an immense amount of damage. But not all is lost. We can repair this. We are of nature. So repairing our connection to her will always be possible. But in order to do so, it is necessary to understand what our ancestors understood, that spirit is all around us. Nature is spirit. To help explain and to dive into this topic, I have two guests tonight. My guests tonight are Will Keller of Natural Freedom League and Logan Hart of the Wizard Factory. Both of my guests are also featured content creators on the One Great Work Network. So if you're not familiar with them, you can go over there and get familiar with them. But, anyways, let me bring in my guests now. We have Mr. Will Keller of Natural Freedom League and Logan Hart of the Wizard Factory. So
Hello.
thank you for being here. I'm wicked excited for this conversation. Will, you're like the reigning champion of guest spots on A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. Logan, this is your first time on the show, so this is going to be great. How are you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic. It's an honor to be here and appreciate the invitation, James.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm doing great. It's a privilege to be on here again, James, and I'm really excited to get into this topic with a couple of my brothers.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and so animism. This is the word. This is the hot button word for tonight. And I guess my first question, just to kick things off, is kind of like just a question to ease people's minds, right? And I guess we would have to start by kind of establishing whether or not is animism synonymous with atheism. So whoever would like to take that question on first, go.
Get it, Logan. Get
All
it.
right, I'll take it.
Get it.
I would say they are diametrically opposed to one another, matter of fact. So atheism is essentially nihilism. Everything's one big happy accident. The universe is just a big mechanical clock. There's no inherent meaning to anything. Animism is the exact opposite of that, in that it is a mindset and a perspective, a paradigm that all is mind. It's basically an extension of the first Hermetic principle. All is mind, everything is consciousness to varying degrees. And the connection we have to nature is inseparable, essentially. And it's that living relationship with nature. And one quick caveat is that a lot of people think animism and paganism are the same thing, where they are very similar. I look at animism as the mindset, the perspective, and I call paganism practical animism. In other words, it's the mindset applied through practice, through ritual, and holidays and things like that.
Well said. Well said, man. I love that. Yeah, no, I totally agree. 100% they are opposites. Defining the word anima, it comes from the Latin anima, and it is life, breath,
Mm.
soul. What does it mean when something is animated, right? It is alive. So animism absolutely is a mindset, a perspective, a worldview on how one can utilize the animistic perspective and view the world through consciousness and universal life force energy that is all around us, and within everything.
Yeah, just as another soundbite to that initial question, atheism is like the worldview that the universe is dead.
Mm.
Animism is the worldview that the universe is alive in every aspect.
Yeah, excellent. Very much.
So you're saying that, so you're basically saying that with animism, it's that nature itself is spiritual, and that the is that correct?
God is nature and nature is God. They are one and the same. There's no real difference or not an actual separation between creator and creation.
Mm-hmm.
So where does that leave us with the modern day interpretation of many religions that we either grew up around, that we were indoctrinated into, things like Christianity, Judaism, modern day interpretations of these religions? How do we kind of get to those modern day interpretations from where they were founded?
You throw them in the trash.
But how would the I guess what I'm trying to ask is that um, most people would know, well, most people should know by now, that the esoteric uh, the esoteric origins of these modern day religions, they all come from nature, but through the generations and the centuries, millennia, whatever, they've been kind of altered and adulterated into more of a control structure. So how would we be able to explain to people these days that that those origins are still a part of their religion, but they're not being, I guess they're not being made aware of those things? How would we go to approach somebody with that information?
Well, I'll touch on that too. There is a big part of it of understanding, alternative history, the exoteric versus the esoteric. Animism, the perspective, the mindset goes really well with occultism, right? The hidden knowledge and information of our psychology and the laws of nature, natural law, how reality operates, and the interconnectedness of the self and in our environment. And this is very complementary to animism because it's all about the relationship that you have with nature and understanding that everything is interconnected. And so it's very practical and real world as well, right? I think a lot of people that understand natural law, this is an animistic perspective. When you're coming to know the laws of nature, and then you are interacting with that awareness of the laws of nature, this is animism, the mindset of animism. So with that being said, we need to understand that, of course, there are cycles to human consciousness. So, in our ancient past, our ancestors, just as if our human condition now is one of tyranny and slavery, there probably most likely was a time when humanity was more closer to or in harmony with nature. We can see this just by understanding animism and also paganism and seeing the roots that they have in all the cultural religions. So I'm saying that the exoteric, the cultural religions have stolen, perverted, and inverted the knowledge that humanity has gained with the animist perspective, and they have used it, twisted it, and used it for control. This is why most of the cultural religions, they resonate for a long period of time, and people do cling on to them because, one, there are seeds of truth within them. This is the core esoteric. And then, of course, there's a whole bunch of deception and lies that go with that. So we're ultimately talking about stolen stolen knowledge that has been used for control. The only way you're going to get to this conclusion is, one, you have to have a correct diagnosis of what animism is, and also paganism, right? And just to clarify, paganism, the term, it derives from Christianity. This is what the Christians in the Catholic Church used as an identifying factor to someone that was outside of the big cults, right? So you're outside of the Abrahamic religions, you are a pagan, which means the meaning of pagan is country dweller. So I love the definition that you used, Logan, that it's practical application. This is paganism because there's two parts, two categories. There's understanding the mindset, right? And then there's the mentation, and the practice that you use that knowledge, the wisdom, the knowledge applied in your day-to-day life. And how is that applicable? So there's a lot of directions it can go, but it's crucial to understand. I'll use Christianity for an example, right? This Christianity it derives from animism, the mythology, the allegories. All of this comes from the knowledge that was gained from our ancestors, and then, of course, genocide happened as well. I'll use St. Patrick's Day as an example, right? There are no snakes in Ireland. St. Patrick drove out the snakes of Ireland. This is a metaphor for killing the animist shamans and the wisdom holders and the pagan animistic peoples of that country, of that land. That's what that means. So you need to understand, this is really good for understanding the social engineers. You have a time period where the knowledge of natural law was very high, and a group of people wanted to infiltrate and increase their control on humanity. So what do? They co-opt the information, and then they kill all the wisdom holders, the people that held this knowledge and was trying to propagate this knowledge. This is where you start to see the tides turn in the human condition, from my point of view.
Very well said. I definitely have some stuff I can add as well. You were dead on in the diagnosis of paganism is the root of all esoteric knowledge, all occult knowledge. It comes from that unbroken connection with nature. And then religion hijacked that, distorted it, and weaponized it for mind control. And I think that's more a bigger reason that people cling to it. Partly, yes, because there's truth mixed into that and they can sense that. That's what I call the cheese and the rat trap. It's like, but there's good stuff here, right? Why would I, just leave perfectly good, food sitting out like this, not seeing that it's luring them into the cage. But mind control works through trauma. And when you have trauma, what's called trauma bond with not only people. This is a common idea, trauma bonding with a person, your captor, that sort of thing. But I am submitting that you can trauma bond with ideas, toxic beliefs, toxic behaviors, that it's like an addiction. It's compelled by that wounding. And when you have a religion that's gaslighting you, telling you you're worthless, you're powerless, you need being saved because you're just a wretched sinner, that creates a trauma bond to that belief because you feel that that's true. So you need that redemption just to feel okay. Well, what would I do? How can I just be a wretched sinner without my Savior? Well, then I'm just hopeless, right? So they cling to that. But I do think that animism is really essentially synonymous with occult knowledge because that's where it all comes from, is that direct observation of nature. And also, it's very common that even in our natural law circles amongst our colleagues, many still have Christian programming running. And I say this because I myself have recognized this within myself. I was raised Christian, and it's a long process to deprogram from that. Even when you ostensibly say, I'm no longer that, I don't identify, I don't resonate with that anymore. It's like when you rip a tick out of your flesh and the head is still stuck in there and you think that you got rid of it, but then it's still in there and it's causing disease. That's essentially the Christian mindset. The roots go so deep because it's such a sophisticated mind control weapon. It's really difficult to root out of there. And many of us are still applying the religious mindset, the monotheistic, the kind of dogmatic mindset to natural law itself, and treating it like a religion. Well, Mark Passio says this, and the Kabbalion says this, and they're like externalizing that wisdom to like this canonized version instead of, again, a direct connection with nature, observing it directly, testing it. It's a scientific process, ongoing, and that's where the power is, really. And that's what it is to be an animist and a pagan. Is you're living that. You're not just paying it lip service and putting some altars on your thing and lighting candles and painting your face and LARPing around and all those silly things, right? That's what it
So,
means in essence.
so it's not just about enjoying, the immediate thought of what people would define as nature, i.e., like the trees and the sunrises and the weather and these things, but it's also about realizing cause and effect and the nature of the principles in natural law, and we have to apply that into the definition of nature and what animism is. Is that what you're saying? Is that like yes, like there are forces at play that, the spirit is out there and it's, helping the flowers bloom and the patterns of what you would immediately think of nature. But again, sorry to repeat myself, but you also have to take into account the nature of cause and effect and how our interactions happen with one another. Is that
Totally. And here's how I would address what you're asking here, because there's twofold to it, and it's kind of nuanced. So nature is, first and foremost, just synonymous with reality. When we saw, because it's regarding natural law, which the laws are in effect everywhere. They're universal. It's not like they only apply when you're out in the forest or whatever have you. Like, they're always in effect. The natural laws are observable in any environment, including in the big city with full of people and all this kind of thing. The reason, and here's where nature does come in, is that the more you're removed from an artificial environment, the more easily these laws can be seen without human intervention, because that's what the matrix is, right? The matrix isn't a false reality. It's reality, but it's a illusion that's been grafted onto the natural world to make you think that's what reality is. This is how it works, when it's just highly controlled and manipulated to seem like something very different. And so that's why getting out of the city, going out into nature, spending time, especially just alone, just you in nature, in the trees with animals and weather and all those things, is so healing, but also spiritual, because you're getting that direct connection with it without all the manipulation and the man-made constructs and the artificial, city streets and walls and Wi-Fi and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's pure. That's the word I would use.
Yeah, like, rolling back the things that sever our connection to nature and
Mm-hmm.
and really experiencing it for what it is. I mean, like, what you're saying brings to mind the idea of grounding, where you're barefoot and you're on the grass,
Mm-hmm.
and you're the like that electromagnetic, frequency is, like, flowing through you, and it's, like, really
Right.
it really helps you feel very powerful and good.
Mm.
Um
One thing I do think makes a difference here is we're talking about a living environment.
Hmm.
When you're in a city, everything's very dead. It's very inert and sterile, right? We kill all the plants and just put concrete, and there's, like I said, EMF signals and chemtrails, and it's just very anti-life. When
Hmm.
you're out in nature, you're literally surrounded by it. Vegetation and animals and moving weather patterns and topography that's always changing, and like that's where, like I said, the forces and the laws themselves are more readily seen, because these things are playing out as well. So when you're observing an animal, or the way a tree moves in the wind, or where things grow and where things don't grow, and where there's festering sickness, in a like pool of water that it's not flowing, like there's so much symbolism and allegory in that. And that's a key component to what I say paganism is essentially having the eyes of allegory. That's why
Hmm.
mythology is so prevalent in pagan cultures, because they're seeing that nature is it's an infinitely repeating fractal, basically. And by looking at one seemingly innocuous event, you can extrapolate wisdom, because everything is the same in a different way. So you're seeing something, and you're seeing, because you have that higher consciousness and that right brain, like pattern recognition, you can see the parallels. That's where, the pattern recognition and understanding symbolism is coming into play. Is, you can extrapolate wisdom and symbolism through allegory. Again, that's why you watch a movie, and that's a natural law lesson, because you're seeing a story play out. The characters are making these choices as cause, and then you see the effect, and then the movie shows you, like, this was the outcome of these characters and their choices, basically.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the moral of the story, as it would
Exactly.
be, these parables, they help us. They figure out, give us a little bit of foresight into, perhaps if I were to go and do those things, these outcomes could happen. And this is a very important aspect of cause and effect that a lot of people, um, not people that know about it, but a lot of people that don't understand it. Like, this is in my opinion, this is the biggest part of cause and effect that people lack understanding of, is that it takes a lot of foresight in order to actually be like a moral person, to understand history and how things played out in the past, and saying, you know what, those weren't good outcomes. I don't want those outcomes, and I want something better. So I'm not going to repeat those mistakes, and I'm going to go forward with a better, more positive mental attitude, and be a better moral person. And, uh, but what do you think about that?
I'll jump in. Yeah, I love what you guys are saying. Metaphor, allegory is huge in the animistic perspective. This is why a lot of the animists, the ancient animists, everything was an oral tradition, right? And we're talking about pattern recognition. So if you're going to have higher consciousness, you need to take in more information and certain types of information to increase your pattern recognition. This is why you have the sagas, the Eddas, you have all of these stories, right, that are archetypal, are allegories, metaphorical, because you're using a story and you're depicting mental images that embed into the subconscious. This is how knowledge and wisdom was transferred throughout the generations, because you're doing it in a story like way, and it's easier to remember. It's relatable. You're giving nature human characteristics, which makes it relatable as well in these stories, right? This is where, you can look at animal totems and stuff like that, where the animal would represent the community, and that's due to the certain characteristics of that animal are self-similar to the characteristics
Mhm.
of the community itself.
It's
So
drawing
there,
those parallels.
exactly, and this is one of the most beautiful aspects of animism, is in the modern world. right now in the present now, using the metaphor and allegory in your day-to-day life and what is going on really does help with pattern recognition and seeing everything or perceiving everything as levels of consciousness and as energy gives you great vast amount of insight on someone's mental stability, what level they're at, how to convey information, how to comprehend information. I mean, the list goes on and on. For me, it is course correction is how I look at animism. If we need to be in harmony with natural law, the laws of nature, truth, nature is truth, right? Then we need to have that connection, and it has to start in the mind. And this is exactly what animism is. You know, if we look at the word anima, and there's also another connotation of animus, which synchronistically it's feminine and masculine. The anima represents the irrational mind, and the animus represents the rational mind. So you can look at it as, you know, a dualistic as heart and mind, feminine and masculine, just as you can see in nature, the principle of mental gender and manifested gender as well in the natural world. All of the natural law principles that we talk about, also known as the Hermetic principles, is building that relationship with the animist perspective.
Hmm. And I was going to say too, regarding the story, because it's just an important aspect of all of this, and truly understanding that mindset is your life is the ultimate story. You're living your story through your first person perspective. It's unfolding as if you are the prime spectator of your own movie, playing out, but you're an active participant in it. So you're choosing your experience as you navigate through it and the different choices that you're making. So of course, stories are going to connect with your mind deeper than anything else, because that's how we actually experience life. And so hearing another person's story, what is that person always doing? They're identifying themselves in the role of those characters, usually the main character, because you're the main character of your story. And then because natural law is consistent, that if you were to relive that same story in the same choices were made, a very similar outcome would come about, because again, it's just a science. And what is science but proving a hypothesis by recreating the exact variables to see if the same outcome happens? That's what you're doing, because natural law is consistent. If it wasn't, everything would be chaos. You know what I'm saying? Like one day you can take a corner in your car at one speed and it's fine. The next day the laws changed and suddenly you're sliding into the wall, right? These laws have to be consistent, because that's how we're learning. We're saying, oh, I did this once, this was the outcome. I did it again, this was the outcome. I can trust this. And then you get better because you build each level upon that previous understanding, right? We have high levels of technology nowadays that are all predicated on laws that were discovered thousands of years ago in primitive versions of those. And each, generation, we're building those tools off of the understanding and of the previous, those who came before, and standing on the shoulders of those giants, as they say. So
Great points.
Yeah, awesome points. A quick question: you brought up technology, and so does, say, practicing animism in this day and age, would this mean that we need to abandon technology?
not at all.
Wow. All right, let's talk about that. Because this being such an ancient method of understanding nature and our surroundings and everything like that, how does technology fit into that? I mean, what's up with that?
So, real quick, and a great point and question that we can dive into, and a common misconception when we talk about animism or even paganism, right? Almost immediately, And Logan, you brought up, programming and conditioning. The majority of people immediately think this means reverting to the past. And this is not at all what I'm talking about. We can learn from the past, but animism is very present, practical in the here and now. So when we look at technology, which technology is technology, right? So it's a craft used for logic. So it's a tool. And animism, if you're going to be in harmony with nature, right, and you're going to have that connection with nature, then you understand that there are tools everywhere. Understanding the elements, wood, fire, air, water, and how you can mix these up to make tools. You can build shelter. You can build an axe, etc., right? Even in the modern day, a computer, a gun, these are all tools. They're neutral. So it all depends on how the wielder is using it. And as an animist, it's all about your actions and your accountability and responsibility on how you act within the world and with each other. So that's a huge topic. And absolutely, I mean, as an animist, I'm very much for technology that promotes the well-being of humanity. And this comes down to, how a human being is going to use this technology.
Right, we're using it right now to talk about this topic, where we use it on a weekly, sometimes daily basis to improve our workflow and to get the message of natural law out there to people. So it does make sense that it can be used in a moral capacity to further bring us into a condition of freedom, and understanding natural law is the course that we need to take in order to meet that goal. So I really like what you said there, Will. Logan, do you have any?
Oh yeah.
All right,
Oh
take
yeah.
it away, brother.
Yeah, so if you have a problem with technology, if you think technology is the problem, is the issue, then go, find a tool, get a spade out of your shed or something, and just go ahead and scoop your brain right out of your skull, because that is the ultimate technology that you have and that you're using, hopefully, every single day, right? Your body is technology. Technology is not the problem, it's the tool. If you think technology is a problem, then what you're doing is you're blaming something else. You're projecting your own inefficiencies as a human being and the ability to exercise self-control and to use a tool responsibly. That's what I would say to that, because as we mentioned earlier, natural law, it doesn't discriminate. It's present at all times. It's just as relevant today as it was 1,000, 10,000, a million years ago. These things are timeless. So to be a modern day magician is what I call, you're living in the here and now, in the present day. It's not about trying to live in some sort of time machine or pretend like you're going back in time and erasing everything. And the condition that we're in now, an evolved conscious person can exercise discernment and self-control to the point that you put technology in its place. You control it, it doesn't control you. You use it to leverage power. It's all about power in this life. Your mind is power, right? Your time and your energy and your currency. These are all just forms of power that you can utilize, and you can spend it wisely or you can waste it away. It's up to you, right? So, I mean, I think people like to throw out the baby with the bathwater. It's a world of dialectic mind control. It's all or nothing, left or right, black or white, this or that. The power is in balancing and synthesizing two seemingly opposing forces. That's where the actual power is. If you're neutral, you're neutered. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? So it's not about just throwing away one and going the opposite direction. That's just as much control. It's like, well, I don't like Christianity, so I'm going to become a Satanist, right? That's so predictable, and I've gone through my own, well, I went full on atheist instead. It's just a different dialectic. But, eventually I found more of a, that synthesized middle ground between spirituality and like not being trapped in religion, basically.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I think that sufficiently covers as far as like not just throwing out technology altogether, but learn to use it responsibly, and still you can still draw and extrapolate old styles of wisdom and practices and rituals and things, whatever you want. If it's useful, that's the ultimate question. If it's useful, it doesn't matter if it's old, if it's new. A good wizard uses what is useful, what is powerful, regardless.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's important. It's important to stress that, like, we are, trying to change things for the better. So, I mean, if it's useful, if you can use it in a moral capacity, then by all means, do so. Uh, we have a we have a comment here in the chat, and I'll bring it up on screen. And this flat top Hank says, "When a 35-year-old does not work and plays video games all day, it's a problem." I agree with that. I
I
agree.
agree it's a problem, but it's not a video games problem. It's
It's
a
a person.
35-year-old child
Mhm.
problem. It's
Yeah.
a person that needs to grow up. But it's just no sense in blaming the thing they're choosing to waste away on isn't the issue. It could be anything. Whether,
Mhm.
it's like blaming drugs for an addict. It's like, well, if they didn't have that, they would just find something else,
Mm.
because there's something compelling that behavior. You have to look at that. It starts with the principle of mentalism.
Right.
Yes.
Tools are just that. They're
Right.
just tools.
Right. I mean, these sorts of issues come up, and a lot of the times people don't even realize what's going on is that they're using these tools, whether it be they're using drugs or a tool like a video game or something. It's a coping mechanism
Exactly.
for something that's missing. So it's like, where do we start? Well, we have to trace down what got taken away. What is that missing piece? And to see if we can fill that gap, if we can replace that missing piece and to heal that trauma, because that's a lot of trauma response is coping mechanisms for
Mhm.
something that's missing. And a lot of the times, what's missing, and it goes along with our conversation tonight, is a deep connection with the natural world.
Mhm.
That's a lot of people that goes whew, right over their heads. It's not even
Mhm.
on their radar. A deep connection with the natural world.
And video games is actually an interesting example of that, because it is a truly artificial world it doesn't actually even exist, even though it's a paradox, because it exists in that you can experience it, but it's a created world that is not actually real. It's an environment that's artificial. And why do people do that? Especially an addict, a 35-year-old man that doesn't work. Like you said, James, what's the hole that's missing? He's doing it because he feels like the hero in the video game. It's a proxy for him being the hero of his own life.
Mhm.
Why?
Bingo.
Because he feels powerless in the real world. But he goes into the video game and suddenly he's a master chief, or all powerful mage or something like that.
This is why everyone loves the hero's journey. They love watching The Matrix. They love seeing V for Vendetta. It resonates inside. It sparks
Yeah.
that archetype, right, for the lack of subconsciously. One thing I want to say, I mean, a disconnected nature, then you're disconnected from self. You're disconnected from spirit, from evolution, all the way down the line, right? And I really think that this is ancestral trauma. You mentioned this earlier, Logan, ancestral trauma that is still being played out from the quote unquote fall of man, right? And this is why, obviously, doing the shadow work, but really understanding what that is and going deeper into your psychology, but also observing your patterns and your behaviors on a day-to-day basis. A lot of people talk about the shadow work, and and it's kind of all up here, when you need to distribute that power or that observation in the heart space and in your day-to-day actions, because they're reflections of each other. You can write down your day-to-day habits, and that will give you insight into your mentation, into your psychology. So, and vice versa. Because with the animist perspective, consciousness and energy, right? So everything is energy exchange, it's transformation or lack thereof, right? So you can see if someone's inactive and not going public and speaking for truth and for freedom, right? That energy there's a lack of energy that is being transformed there. So yeah, it's really important. But the ancestral trauma, I mean, we're still seeing that today, which ultimately is the disconnect from nature, creation, truth.
Yeah, and some of the you mentioned, we've been talking a little bit about movies and modern depictions of the hero's journey and things like that, which for a conscious mind, it's fine. Okay, but we also, I think it's very important to at least draw attention to how those tools are being used in order to take the power away from people. When they see the rebel on the stage, there's like a subconscious desire to rebel. There's a subconscious desire to be free. This is our nature, right? This should resonate with people, that when they see these characters on the screens doing all the things that they want to do, this is a mechanism of mind control
Mhm.
to make it so you don't go and do those things, you know? So,
Absolutely.
it's purposefully done that way to trick the unconscious people, you know?
Yeah, it's like a pressure release valve,
Yes.
because there's that angst and dissent that's brewing under the surface in their psychology, and the social engineers understand this. They have to create things that let the steam off. Football, for example, is a really big one for male aggression, because there's so much suppression of consciousness and uh, action, divinely aligned action. But if they can give it something, I call it a tube sock. It's a little bit of a crude. I know it's kind of a crude
Go on.
allegory, but it's basically a place to expel or spend your creative energy into a way that's not going to be impregnated with life, with actual creative uh, like viability. It's just going to go there and die.
Mm,
So there's all kinds of mechanisms that are tube socks that are just there to, you know, harness and channel and direct this creative energy into something inert that will never become anything, because otherwise it would bubble up and then people would actually start doing something.
yeah, people, uh, it the idea that the free will is being suppressed, and there's going to be a very visceral reaction to that suppression, and this is
Mhm.
where a lot of people, like, this a lot of people feel it, that something's wrong, and they just can't connect the dots where we're supposed to be free, and all of these artificial things in our surroundings are suppressing that, and they just miss the plot, completely.
I would say that someone cannot suppress another's free will. I think the individual does that themselves. Free will has to be activated. And I totally understand what you're saying. And this is why in my recent presentations, I started with the feeling, because animism is also the heart. It's always also the intuitive capacity,
Mm.
the feeling, that connection as well. And I think a lot of people, the majority of people, I would say, do have that inner knowing that yes, something's fucked up in the world. But they don't want to look at it. They don't want to confront that truth, that reality. So for sure, we got to think about the heart space. The Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
So, Will, you mentioned the anima and animus, okay, and this is related to Carl Jung's work. Would you care to kind of go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes way further back than Carl Jung as well. Carl Jung he's got some great pieces diving into this, right? But we're talking about the anima and the animus, the feminine and the masculine components of mental gender that are in all of us, right? Mental gender. Now, as above, so below, as within, so without. We can also see the anima and the animus in the macrocosm of the world, right? This is meaning and purpose, and even for an individual as well. But the anima is for a man, I'll use myself, my anima has the biggest influence was my mother to lay the foundations of the anima, my mental feminine, right? So the relationship that I had with my mother is going to set the pace on how I view and interact with other women in my life,
Mm.
and vice versa for a woman with the animus, right? Her relationship or lack thereof with her father. So, I mean, if we take this bit of information and we kind of observe what is going on in reality in the current human condition, that we can see that most children are in separated homes. There's daddy issues and mommy issues, right?
Mhm.
And this is the proxy parent. Religion or government fills that void, and it works because there is that disconnect from nature, that lack of self-knowledge. So the anima and the animus, absolutely. And we can see this in the world. I say the anima is meaning, right? And the animus, the masculine, is purpose. Purpose is active, it's penetrating, it's forceful, it's going forward. Meaning is a internal energy, right? So
Beingness versus doingness.
exactly. Yep. Well said. Well
Mm.
said. That the meaning of life is freedom, because freedom is infinite possibilities, right? Just like the womb or Mother Nature.
Mm.
And purpose is masculine. It's point A to point B. Let's get there. So this is all very aligns with animism.
Mm.
It's observing the relationship that we have with nature.
And I was going to say too, it's great that you said that at the end, because um, I would say this is very much a kind of a pagan mindset as well, because these animus and anima are archetypal.
Mm.
You're consolidating qualities, and you're creating a mental construct around, and then assigning those qualities, and then that you have a relationship with that thing. That's what paganism is. That's
Mhm.
what any of the gods are. You're taking qualities that go together, and you're assigning it to a entity that you can have a relationship with. And so, and like you said, Will, you're seeing this play out everywhere in the real world. So when you have feminists that are angry at the masculine, they have a wounded animus, because they probably had a bad relationship with their father, and then that created a subconscious program with that wounded relationship with the masculine. Then they're attracting the same type of men in their lives, who further abuse them, traumatize them, disrespect them, and that just feeds into dark archetype this dark archetype that's
Mhm.
toxic. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Until you do that internal work to heal that and understand that these are divine principles, that they're born of truth and love, they're not there to destroy you, and that it's your own shit that you're projecting onto that image that you are loathing. It's those parts of yourself and the parts that you're not able to overcome and reconcile and properly, healthily process, that you're projecting onto that. And that's what you have a problem with. And you need to heal that, because nature is beautiful, it's perfect, it's balanced, and it's it's there for you, right? That's the spiritual experience. We're born into this world, we're born of this world. Like the laws of nature is what created consciousness out of matter. You know, like we're inseparable from it. So that truth and the love, the care component is our cosmic mother and father that created us as we are.
Well said, man.
Thank you for thank you for laying that out. You mentioned paganism, okay, a couple of times already, and so I would like to ask you if you could give us some examples of paganistic cultures, and if we could start breaking down some of the polytheism and how it all relates to tonight's topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, paganism was the default spirituality before religion came along. And it was just an innate, inherent part of being a human being. And even though every culture had its own versions, there was a lot of syncretism. That's why I consider myself a syncretist, because truth is universal. Like, you can observe something in nature and you might call it one thing and I might call it something else, and we like venerate that in different ways, but that thing is the same. It is what it is, and we're both two human beings experiencing that through our subjective experience. And so again, religion came along and just systematically eliminated that aspect, and then hijacked concepts and turned them into weapons. But it's widely misunderstood, this it's not a belief system, it's just this direct observation and canonization of these archetypes. It's not like just a bunch of made up stuff to, I don't know, make sense of the world, like the academics try to portray, of just like these dumb, knuckle dragging cavemen that just made these stories to explain shit that they couldn't with science. It's about observing nature and creating these archetypes that make them easier to understand, but not from an explanation point of view. It's more of like actually understanding and growing through those perspectives and working with those directly, having that direct communication and relationship with natural forces. So the polytheism thing, I don't think that they were literally viewed as like literally true, right? They're just archetypal aspects that make things easier to understand by just, you put it in a anthropomorphized package and you give it a name, instead of saying like the electromagnetic force or something like more literal or scientific. You're putting a name to it, and it has this personality about it, because that's the universe. It's consciousness. This is the animist mindset. So why wouldn't you give it a name and kind of humanize it? See, that's the problem when people say they're just humanizing things. They're coming from that mechanical universe perspective, that nihilistic, just empty and dark. Whereas it makes perfect sense if you see everything as living and conscious. Of course, you're going to give names to things and kind of give them some personality, because they do have personality. That's the whole point. It's like nature is temperamental, right? She's in a mood today. There's some storms coming in. Like, there's truth to that. You're not just drawing, random conclusions, basically.
I want to make sure that we are talking about Seed 5 Metamorphosis. This is going to be a free online conference about the occult, esotericism, freedom, history, philosophy, symbolism, and natural law. This is going to be hosted by Brandon Martin and Nate Cap and the boys over at the Cubbyhole podcast. This is going to take place September 23rd and the 24th this year, 2023. All-star lineup of speakers. Every time I look at this list, I'm just so proud to even be on it. But of course, there's myself, James Cordiner, Douglas Martin, Nate Cap, Mark Passio, Chris Jansen, Will Keller, Brandon Martin, Leslie Powers, Brandon Spencer, Patty Lager, Dorian Greens, Cullen Smith, Dylan McCormick, Mark Devlin, Corey Angelot, Logan Hart, and Sethicus Boza. So go over to seedtruth.com to keep up with this conference and the featured speakers over there. Does anthropomorphizing these aspects of nature help us better relate to them? Would you think?
Mhm.
Because that's pretty much what it's all about with our journey through consciousness is like how do we relate to our surroundings? So it makes sense to kind of anthropomorphize these archetypes to humanize them and to come up with these characters.
Right. Well, we are here to learn. That
Yeah.
is what it means. That is the universal spiritual purpose. Everyone has their unique purpose that's individual, and that's fine, but that's the one thing we all have in common. That's the point of this place. The universe is the university. We are here to learn. And so when you can make things more relatable, it's easier to learn. That's the whole point, right?
Mm.
That's my take anyways.
I love that because communication is key, but comprehension is vital, right? So getting hung up on these words and phrases, right? If you don't actually understand it, and then you can't apply it in the real world, right? In nature, then you don't know it, right? So I mean, to know and not do is to not know. So the anthropomorphizing of the forces of nature, the laws of nature, the experiences. This makes it more relatable for deeper understanding and more efficient application in the world. But also, I would say, so this is a huge positive benefit, right, for an animist to do this and for us to do this in our lives. But it's also been used in a perverted way, right? If you look at Christianity, for an example, and you see Jesus as a human being, a living human being, then you're hovering in the exoteric, meaning the information that is made to be conveyed to the masses of people. When you get down to the esoteric and you actually understand astrotheology and what it means, and it's not the S-O-N, it's the S-U-N, right? So that brings on a whole different meaning, and that information can be used on a deep level. So the anthropomorphic tactics of cultural religions have really been used for control and against human beings because it takes away the lack of understanding, right? Oh, Thor, Odin, these are humans in the sky when they actually represent archetypes and forces of nature. I mean, they're
And of
two
ourselves.
and of ourselves. Absolutely. I mean, you're dealing with two different worlds. So that's really important to kind of mention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the mindset is so important
Yep.
to not just hear the words and try to extrapolate, oh, this is what they meant, or it seems like this. You have to understand like how they're looking at these ideas and why they're useful, why they're relevant.
Exactly, and this is why the mainstream definitions and the scientists, the modern scientists, when they talk about animism, they say primitive human beings. Even in the the mainstream history of humanity's evolution, right? We were dumb apes that, evolved into human beings that were primitive, grunting, throwing stones and this kind of shit. When in truth, actually the opposite happened. First, human beings have always been here. And I mean here, meaning in existence, not necessarily this planet, but also we didn't evolve from apes, from monkeys. That didn't happen. Human beings have always been here. And in the past, absolutely, we were at a higher level of consciousness due to the natural state of perceiving the world, perceiving our experience. And that is animism. If you look at children are they have that animist perspective way early on. They see life in everything.
It's the natural perspective before it gets stamped out of
before the conditioning and programming sets in. Absolutely. Yep. Just as freedom and anarchy is the natural state of human beings, right? In the external environment, animism is the internal natural perception.
That I've said many times that animism is spiritual anarchy.
There you go.
And anarchy is political animism. I don't know, something like that.
Dude, no, well
it's
said.
The natural state before the programming, and like, no. This is how the world works. This is how we do things, right?
Exactly, because it's based in truth.
On top of that,
it's based in observing nature and
direct
ourselves,
observation and participation.
Exactly. When we look at the quote unquote freedom movement or the anarchy movement, right? What's like the one thing that's lacking from this movement, from this community? It's spirituality. Most people are still stuck in the material paradigm, right? And that's the the Christian and the cultural religion programming still playing out, even though most of them would say they are atheists. The programming is still playing out for sure.
Right. Either atheist or Christian in place of true spirituality. And if you're lucky, some form of occultism that's probably overly intellectualized and doctrinized as opposed to practical living direct connection to nature.
Exactly, man.
Well, the thing that a lot of modern anarchists, like you're saying, the whole spiritual aspect of it is they don't understand that what they're saying is that they want freedoms. They want freedoms, right? Something Chris Nelson said to me once was that they want their freedoms. Well, we want freedom, right? We want freedom, and where they're lacking in their understanding is they just don't get it. It all comes from nature, and animism and spirituality. That is the foundation of freedom. Like, and we have to understand this in order to have the argument that backs up our claim to sovereignty. Is that no man rules another man, because we're all created equal, and that's that. And so
and it's horrendously ironic and hypocritical that most anarchists scoff at the idea of spirituality, when in reality the one and only way to truly understand the things that they actually say that they advocate for is through the spiritual perspective.
Yeah.
And because right, if you're a solipsist, if you're a moral relativist, then you're basically saying that freedom is just my preference. There's nothing objective about that as a truth, as a fundamental moral truth. It's just, well, I prefer freedom. And if that's the case, then what makes your opinion any more valid than the most radical, extreme authoritarian? It's all just preference, right?
The whole no gods, no masters thing that you see pinned on there with an anarchy symbol. These people don't even understand that no gods, no masters isn't even an anarchist idea. It's a socialist idea. and that was formed back in the 19th century
Hmm.
by a French socialist. I'm forgetting his name right now, but it has nothing to do. It's anyways.
Well,
You know,
that's a great point, and I'll add this, and this is very common in the anarchy, freedom movement. You'll see the solstice, the summer solstice, or the spring equinox, right? And you see a lot of these posts saying, oh, the dark occultists, the social engineers, they worship the sun and all this kind of stuff. So that's a polarizing concept that they have. They are very polarized in ignorance, right? So why wouldn't you want to venerate
The
the
giver
sun,
of all life.
the giver of all life? See, and this is where a lot of people have an issue with too when you're speaking of animism and paganism. So with animism, when you perceive life or the world as extensions of yourself, you add respect, care, compassion. Nature and life itself becomes sacred, right? So of course, rain is good. The sun, springtime is excellent because you know that you can grow your own food and you can get a bountiful harvest when the summer solstice comes, right? And all this kind of stuff. It's living in the natural world. It's living in truth and recognizing the seasons, the cycles, the interconnectedness of nature and of ourselves, right? So I see that polarizing topic all the time.
Mm.
a
Yeah.
lot of people dread it when the rains are coming down, but they their mentality toward it is totally askew. Where I was actually this whole last week, it's been raining. Okay, a little bit of an anecdote, and oh man, it's getting me down a little bit. But then it's just like, no, dude, correct that mentality. Look at it in a positive way. Because it's raining, there's some place out there right now, food is growing, and we should celebrate that.
Mm.
Hopefully there's no floods happening or anything like that, you know what I mean? But, like, in a normal setting, you go, "Oh, thank God it's raining because that means food is gonna be able to get the water it needs to grow," and, like,
Yeah.
that
I'm really glad you're bringing that up because I think this is a very crucial part of the animist mindset is not seeing everything as black and white, good and evil, etc. That's not to say there's no such thing as good or evil. Don't get it twisted. Morality does exist. There is objective right and wrong, but that's a very small, even though it's the most important thing, it's seven things that you don't do, right? And
Mhm.
everything else is either like gray or, white or whatever have you, some shade of not black. Anyhow, the pagan mindset is seeing the spectrum of things and seeing nature as balance and that everything has its place. I talked about this on my show today. So it's great that this is coming up because we were talking about at the time Saturn
Mm.
and how people kind of see Saturn as this malefic planet, right? The dark occultists, they're using Saturn to enslave us. They wear the black robes in the courtroom and the police, and they put the cubes on their head and all this kind of stuff. And those things are true. They are using Saturn. They're using natural law to
Mhm.
enslave us because
Mhm.
we're allowing it through our choices and we're enslaving ourselves. They understand how the universe works and they're weaponizing that. But that doesn't make nature itself evil or any aspect of nature evil. Saturn is actually the resistance that is your greatest teacher, right? If you want to build strong muscles, you get in there and you lift heavy shit. That resistance is what's actually giving you the stimulus to grow stronger. That's a beautiful thing. That's not a negative thing at all. And you shouldn't dread that. You shouldn't hate that or think that it's enslaving you, right? Even gravity, oh, gravity, it's always pulling us down. But look at the astronauts that spend too long in space and they got little toothpick legs, right?
it's
Let's
got
not get
use in
into space
space.
is real or not, but regardless, the concept is there. So even this idea of chaos, people think order is good, chaos is bad. Well, sometimes, but there's always a counter, right? There's always the other side of that equal sign. that balances things out. So the worse things get, as bad as slavery is, and it is bad, I'm not saying otherwise. However, the worse things get here, the more that mirror of natural law, that's what Saturn is all about, is natural law, is reflecting our bad choices back to us and saying, hey, stupid, how bad are you going to let things get before you wake the fuck up and start wising up and making better choices and saying no to evil?
Yeah, man. Well said. Absolutely. And this is exactly where the pagan animist mindset comes in, right? Like I said, it's all about energy exchange, transformation. So yet our current human condition is one of tyranny and slavery. This is going to springboard
Yes.
many of human beings, their evolution in consciousness, just like us three right here and a lot of the listeners, right? It's that pressure, we can pull out a diamond. So very much, again, seeing it as levels of consciousness and energy. When the season of sacrifice comes in, right? March 21st, 22nd, right? That's the season of sovereignty for me, because I know that time period from March 21st to May 1st is a potent, energetic time for me to plant seeds and work on myself and plant seeds in my garden, right? So, and the social engineers know this. I look at them now actually as like dark animists, because they hold that knowledge of occultism, of animism. They have that animist mindset. They understand that the cosmic clock. They understand astrology and how energies come in and the effects that they'll have on human beings and psychology. They understand all of this stuff. This is just natural law. This is the truth of how things work. And for them, they know this, they utilize it. And it's our time to understand this type of information and utilize this tool as well. Very important. When you look at religion, right? Religion, the etymology, the origin of the word, it's religare, but there's also another connotation in Latin as religio. So religare means to bind back, to thwart from forward progress. Religio means to reconnect, to unite together, right? I very much see animism as the connecting, the reuniting together with ourselves and with nature.
That's very well said. I love that. Like, I always think of yoga. The word yoga means to yoke.
Mm.
To yoke is like when they would, a yoke on a cart is what binds the cart to the ox to allow them to pull it. So you're binding through your power source, basically. That's a positive connotation of that binding together with the positive, with creator and creation, one and the same. But like I was saying, you're seeing the holistic system. You're not focusing in on this is good, this is bad. You're seeing all of nature as one big system here to catalyze and move your evolution forward. And you don't nitpick about which part you like or don't like. Every part is serving a purpose. This universe is flawless in how it works and then the laws of nature. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. So nitpicking and saying, well, I don't like that, that's cosmic childhood. You need to grow up and understand like what is serving you. Just because it's unpleasant, getting outside of your comfort zone is where the biggest growth happens. So you should embrace that. When you grow up, cosmic adulthood, and adopting the mindset of the spiritual warrior, you don't just, oh, another adventure. Oh, it's going to rain and we're going to get all our. No, dude, you get excited. You're like, let's go. Let's do this. I'm ready. Take it on anything that comes our way.
Side quests. Oh.
Choose your own adventure. What?
There's one thing that we can't leave out when we talk about animism and paganism. And first, animism is a holistic worldview, holistic mindset, right? That incorporates the mental, the emotional, and the physical.
Yes.
Understanding that it's all one, right? Not separate. It's, it's all about the body. Or it's all about the mind holistically, right? Unity consciousness. And
Yeah.
this is why ritual is extremely important. Now, when I say that word, a lot of people think of ritual, oh gosh, we're going out in the middle of the woods with black hoods. They immediately revert to some type of mentally perceived definition that they have.
Sacrifice some goats or something.
Yes,
Cremation of care.
exactly.
Right.
But ritual is also in spiritual. Ritual is your habits. That's
Yeah.
how I define it.
Absolutely.
Your day-to-day habits.
Good.
What
People
you
even
do on
say
a
this.
day-to-day basis,
My
that's your ritual.
my morning ritual. People even use the terminology, not even understanding it's literally the same thing. It's your
Exactly.
practice that is, and why do we do anything? Hopefully, if you're anywhere remotely conscious of what you're doing, it's because you're trying to get a certain outcome, right? Your morning ritual is you juice because you want to be healthy, and then you work out. You want to get stronger, and then you do meditation so you have a healthy mind. And like, these are your outcomes. Well, any ritual is bringing about some type of outcome, and it may be something energetic, or it could be something that is physical. Because like you said, Will, I love that you brought that up, because a lot of people, especially very spiritual minded people, they start kind of putting the spiritual realm or the metaphysical realm as if it's better or more important than the physical. If that were true, we would just be ethereal entities just floating about in the abyss. There's a reason we are here in a physical body, because this is where the work is done. This world is just as important. This world of matter matters. This is what matters. That's the key. And we're here for a short time. That's why your choices matter too. And I mean, there's so much of this new age nonsense that gets mixed in with spirituality. True animism and paganism scoffs at that bullshit, of like, oh, well, if you believe it hard enough, that it'll be true. And like, I don't know, reality's only in the mind and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I see it all the time, and I'm just like, ugh, so bad.
We are here to master being human, right? Like you said, Logan, we're in the university, right? So animism is responsibility, accountability, engagement, right? You're sick and tired of all the poisoned food and the shit they sell in the grocery store. Start growing a garden. That's
Yeah.
That's animism right there. Do it yourself. Get involved. Build that
Yes.
that interaction and that relationship, right?
Use your
And
body.
use your body. Absolutely. So,
Good stuff.
yeah, man.
Awesome. Would you guys would you guys like to go to calls to see if we can get some people in to ask some questions or comments?
Sure, let's do it.
Cool.
We are streaming live on the One Great Work Network. So over there, we have over 70 content creators, fantastic content creators. I suggest that you go to onegreatworknetwork.com and start perusing through the featured content creators over there. And just like the mission statement goes, we are working to end slavery one mind at a time. So onegreatworknetwork.com, and you can get all of your you can get all your freedom needs over there. So we have Fred from Liebercast in here. So Fred, you're live on A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. You are the first ever caller. So how are you, Fred?
I'm doing great. You guys, I mean, I like the conversation tonight. It was very refreshing having a another perceptions of paganism and Christianity and all these things, because they had and still have a lot of influence into the culture and our characters as such. And what I wanted to bring is when I'm searching for truth, I'm using the apophatic method of discovering, and it's very valuable. And I mean, some people will tell you their experiences and their stories, like Logan says, and if you're um, um, if you can hear really and really listen to the experience of people, they're actually teaching you in their mistakes and wrongdoings. So I mean, and we don't have to get into uh, deeper in that, but I wanted to bring up the inversion of every principle of natural law in this society now. What we're facing actually. Um, and I covered it on the French side of the Libercast, and I want to make another one and talk about it because I think it's an important thing to look at what is the inversion, the total inversion of everything in culture, in spirituality, in the occult, in intellectual meanings in schools and things like that, and they are very heavy on the programming of the people, of most people, and the creation of these apparatus of inversion are discoverable, and people can see it, and there's a solution for every single one of them. I
Yeah.
mean, everything
Great point.
is, yeah, reconciliation of the paradox.
Because if you have a direct and unbroken connection to nature, you can easily recognize the inversions because you know the real deal. And then when you see them running these programs, you're like, that's bullshit. That's an
Apophatic method
inversion.
right there, right?
Exactly.
And it takes that Trinity consciousness that Will brought up about the mental, physical, and spiritual consciousness to be able to like really pick out those inconsistencies that are being thrust in front of us and being fed to us as here's what you should accept. And if we can have that kind of ground to stand on where we're doing the inner work and we're firm in our understanding of who we are and what we're capable of and our connection to nature, all of these beautiful things, then we'll be able to combat that bullshit that's being fed to us on a daily basis, hourly basis, in all of
I
our
mean,
lives, no matter where you are.
I
Fred's
mean, most people, what they're doing is they're creating their own bullshit.
Yeah.
Mentally, I mean, the fear, the anxiety, it comes
Yeah.
all from the people who are feeling it.
Well,
Mhm.
So I
the
mean, we
inversion.
are, yeah.
No, I was gonna say the inversion principle is a huge principle and tactic that the social engineers want to do because
Mind
it
control.
it absolutely, yeah, full on mind control. So if you can invert knowledge, you're reaching that level of the availability of information, right? Then most people are done from Jump Street unless they really activate the willpower and the care to do otherwise. But to invert nature, and I talk about this in my work too, the agenda against nature, right, against natural law, is to invert, to manage someone's perception, right, control that
And I talk
information. About this in my work too, the agenda. Oh,
Sorry.
It was
did it?
weird.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just me hearing the feedback. What you're really doing, right? Then there is no objectivity. There is no objective truth. There is no truth. You're in relativism. And when you're in relativism, nothing has meaning. And
Yes.
therefore, you cannot communicate to anyone, right? And you're in a state of internal confusion, and it's a wrap at that point. If the keep proceeding down that road, it's a wrap.
Hmm.
I mean, how deep you have to be to deny the nature of existence.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's the ultimate blasphemy of yourself and creation, nature.
It's very, very destructive for the people who are around you and for yourself.
I think it might be useful too to talk about animism in the apophatic. Fred, I watched your
Mhm.
episode with Mark, and I loved how you were, asking him the question of, what spirituality is not, and that sort of thing. He really appreciated that as well. So, if I may, just off the top of my head, first and foremost, what comes to mind is that animism is not a religion
Mm.
because religion, the difference between religion and animism is that religion is something external that is a proxy for true spirituality, and it claims to be the authority. It tells you what is and is not, and expects you to follow that verbatim, and usually with some artificial reward and punishment system involved with that as well. And you're looking to something outside of yourself, a book, a preacher, something, authority figure. Whereas animism being the opposite of that, is a direct relationship to the universe and the ability to find and discover truth yourself. You know, having something like a book that's going to tell you everything you can and can't do, and this is what spirituality is, in and of itself, in its own existence, it's gaslighting you by saying you're too stupid to discover truth on your own. You're too wicked and evil to possibly understand what true morality is and understand like cause and effect, right? So just follow this book and it'll tell you everything you need to know. So you don't need to bother with all that direct experience stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
don't
worldly knowledge. They love to demonize this worldly knowledge. That's literally what that's doing, is demonizing the direct experience, trusting your own senses, right? Lean not into your own understanding, but trust in the Lord, and cutting you off from that direct relationship to nature.
Right. Don't go
The-
and experiment yourself. Don't do that. Don't figure it out for yourself. God, you wouldn't. No, nope, nope. Don't do it. Do it the way I say to do it.
Right.
Here's the instruction manual for your life based on how I think you should live your life. And that's,
See, I've done all the work for you. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
you don't got to do anything. You
exactly.
just sit back, relax, twiddle your thumbs. Heck, stick them up your ass. Who cares? You know,
That's right.
Yeah.
They want to be the middleman of spirituality. They want to be the middleman of yourself, right? They want to be the arbiters of truth. When the living Bible, the living Constitution is all around us and within us for everyone to
Everyone has
discover and
access to it.
understand. Yep, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so mind-blowing, right? What does every cultural religion talk about? And not even just the cultural religions, right? I mean, money, government, all science, right? It's we are right.
We're the
We're
experts.
the arbiters of truth. We're the experts. Our way is the only way, right? They all say that shit. It's total gaslighting and such a narcissistic
Right.
relationship. And this is ultimately what it is. It's parasitical. It takes. It feeds off the host until the host is completely drained of life force energy. And this is what all of these systems, these ideologies, these worldviews do to the individual and to the aggregate, and to the ultimately the planet itself, right? It's draining its life force, because as the human being, we have added responsibility. You know, we are the highest earthly technology that we should be proud of, and also understanding and accepting that dharma, that accountability and responsibility, right? Because we have capability to become the magician, because we can influence our environment through energy exchange, right? You're not seeing a deer doing philosophy and, building some type of machine, right? Human beings do this. So we are the stewards of this planet.
Yep. Well, let's get Jerry in here. Fred, thank you for being the first ever caller on A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. And you're on the One Great Work Network as well. And you've been lately producing a lot of content in French, and
Yeah.
that's amazing. So I applaud you for that, my brother. And
Thank you.
keep on keeping on, man. That's awesome. So you're welcome to stay in the green room if you'd like, but we're gonna trade places with Jerry. Okay.
No problem. Have a
All
good evening, everyone.
Right
Thank you.
on, brother.
Here, Fred.
All right.
There
Jerry,
he is.
Oh, nice. How's it going, guys?
What's
going
up,
well,
Jerry?
man. Thank you for calling in. How are you today?
I'm good. Don't use LibriWolf, however you say that, browser.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, it didn't work,
Yeah,
huh? Got it.
didn't work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Restream can be pretty picky and finicky with this stuff. I've run into those issues myself, so
Yeah. I was like, what's Restream? This is awesome.
Yeah.
But it was a great show, guys. I actually wrote down a couple notes. Um, my first question is to Logan. Like, can you tell me a little bit more about the Christian programming?
yeah, well, that's a whole other show in of itself, man. But I mean, I can try to touch on a couple of things. I mean, the first of things that pop out to me is, first of all, savior programming. You are powerless, you're weak, you can't do it yourself, right? I do all things through God, and needing that savior, right? That's a big one. And people, and again, like, this is playing out even if someone's like abandoned Christianity, but then they think, well, Trump's going to save us, or the aliens are going to save us, or whatever it may be. Q, right? There's all these psyops that are based in savior programming that I think Christianity or some type of Abrahamic religion has paved the way for psychologically. Children are brought up in these religions from a very young age. Their minds are imprinted with that. So even though you have logically let go of the belief system, there's these axioms that remain very, very deeply entrenched in your mind. And their roots go very deep. So that would be one. This idea, and that extends out to other people as well. Like, oh, we should always feed the homeless, and always going around trying to save people, being the good Samaritan, and this kind of stuff. And that's not to say there's something wrong with helping people, but using discernment is extremely important, because many times the you constantly bailing somebody out, you're enabling them, and that's actually the most unloving, uncaring thing you can do, is enable their learned helplessness, because they're never going to learn the lessons themselves of what got them in that situation in the first place, especially if they keep repeating this pattern of always broke and your car's always broken down and this and that. It's like, well, everybody needs a little help now and then, and that's great. I think we should help each other in those ways. But when that gets to that level, it's like, but when are you going to start making better choices where you're not making everybody else responsible for bailing you out all the time, that sort of thing. Another thing off the top of my head, and without getting too long-winded, is the relationship people will have with money, or even just material wealth in general. There's this idea that, to be spiritual, you gotta, like, well, you shouldn't care about having nice things. You shouldn't care about money. And if you want to be rich, then you're greedy, and right, you're materialistic. It's all kind of really gaslighting, because you literally just want nicer things in life. In the pagan mindset is very different from that. Again, we chose to be born here in this, to incarnate in human form. And if you look at astrology and like the Venus archetype, Venus is all about just sensual pleasures, and just good food, and experiencing the finer things in life. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, is greed a thing? Absolutely. And is that healthy? Not at all. Like, that should be tempered. And if all you care about is money, and you'll step on anybody to just get some kind of financial gain out of it, then that is a problem. But even that is just really a symptom of a deeper psychological issue within them. So, people think like capitalism is the reason people are greedy, for example. And it's like, but people are greedy even in communist systems either. So yes, greed is a problem, but taking away people's ability to freely and voluntarily exchange goods, services, and funding, like, that's not going to fix anything. That's just going to make things way worse. So getting out of that mindset of like, money's bad, it's tainted, you're bad if you want to have money and nice things, it's all about balance. So that's kind of just three things off the top of my head that really stay active in people's minds, even if they don't call themselves Christian, if they were never Christian, even, because these things are really kind of entrenched in our society, in our culture, that has been built on, Christian values and ideals.
I have a little bit to expand upon the savior complex, if I may. All right. In my opinion, the savior complex, this whole idea that someone else is going to swoop in and save the day for you, is the single largest contributor to the condition of slavery that we are in. And by that, I mean, like, we are trained to not do things for ourselves and hope that somebody else is going to do the work for us. This type of mentality leads people into laziness and apathy. And when you're in an apathetic mindset, you're not, of course, like, people are going to be able to steamroll right over you and do all these crazy fucked up things around you, and you're just not going to care. And that's the thing that's missing the most. So care, it goes right into a connection right to your own actions, and whether or not you're able to stand up on your own 2 feet and do things for yourself because you care enough about the world around you to be a player on the field and to do things instead of waiting for someone else to come by and do it for you, to pave the way for you so you can just walk a little easier down the path. The path is rocky, it's muddy, it's got roots sticking out of it, and you need to be able to traverse that terrain on your own in order to make it down to the end and feel like you actually did something worthwhile, instead of just laying down and being like, but I'm just going to let other people do things for me.
Daddy, can you put me up on your shoulders while you walk down the path? And
right. Or it's not supposed to be an easy ride, but it's supposed to be one that's worth living. And I don't see it as one that's worth living if all of the work is done for me, and like, this is directly connected to this condition of slavery that we're in. And it's all about care. And people need to stop waiting for Superman with his red cape to swoop in and save the day.
Learned helplessness.
Yeah.
And
no one's coming to save you.
Becoming a spiritual adult.
Right. You're going to save you. You save you. And, save. That's all I got to say about that.
I think this is the most important thing that we can teach children is someday, I won't be here. You have to learn to do it yourself. The greatest gift you can give your children is self-reliance, and and giving them that mindset of, I'm capable. I can do it. I can, don't tie my shoes, Daddy. I can do it. And let them struggle, and let them, that's a big one. Like, let them struggle. It kind of ties back to what I was saying about, sometimes just constantly helping people all the time isn't the best thing for them. It's actually hurting them.
Yeah, and there's a gentle way to go about doing that with young children. That way you're kind of priming them from an early age during those formative years to be used to the idea that one day they're going to have to do things for themselves. It's as simple as just gently telling them that my job as your parent is to prepare you for the days that when I'm not going to be there with you. That way, when I'm not there with you, you can do these things for yourself and you're ready for that. It's not about, I'm going to die one day. And then the kid's kind of freaking out about that. We're not talking like that. We're saying one day you're going to be in a room by yourself, type of like, picture that, and you're going to have to know how to do things on your own. And that's my job as your parent, as your guardian, to prepare you for that time and make sure that you are able to do those things. It's very tricky with children because their imaginations are so beautiful and so wild that it can actually act as a detriment from time to time if you're painting a picture they're not prepared to see. And it can be pretty tricky. You don't want to scare them because that's going to have its own effect. But you want to prepare them and make them feel good and confident instead of scared and timid, and ineffective. So
let them fail. Let them fail. Let them fail. Now, before anyone misconstrues that, right? Failure is great because you're learning what not to do. And I don't mean like let them fail, like, oh, walk across the street. Not like that. I'm talking about in their interests and activities and the learning process, right? Giving them, like you said, James, giving them the tool sets for them to discover and understand it on their own, right? Learning how to think, not what to think, etc. But going back real quick to what you said, Jerry, earlier, and this is something that I've done when I was a kid, kind of simplifying the profound and reducing things down, right? It's because when you look at the cultural religions, whether it's Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Christians do this very, very well and often, right? They always, if you get into a logical process of, you know, why their religion is number one and why they're, you know, this is the only pathway, they always revert to because God wrote the Bible, right? So logically, right, if we look at nature, and even the word nature, NTR is Commission, it means creation, right? We can look at nature and see that human beings did not create the mountains, the rivers, the oceans, the planet, the forces. Most people hopefully can recognize that, right? So God creates a book, one book out of many, but yet so the logical argument just doesn't make sense whatsoever. So what most people are in, they're in this cognitive dissonance, and it reflects very much of being a spiritual child, psychological infant still, right? Or adolescence, you know, but not an adult. And this is what we need to do. We need to get to adulthood. We need to mature in our understanding of the world and how it works. So everything that you guys said, Logan and James, I totally agree with. The abdication of responsibility, the savior complex. Don't worry, Jesus is coming back. It's all good. Don't worry, Trump's going to come in, save everything. It's a lack of willpower, a lack of self-care, self-respect.
Yep.
Wow, incredible points, guys. I honestly couldn't have said it better. So
Thank you.
I don't know if I have anything else on here that's worth mentioning. Yeah, it's I guess I would just mention like the mind control, like how you would like the comment that was put on screen from the 35-year-old or someone blaming like the external thing, not the individual. I think that's crucial. I mean, everyone wants to blame the left, the right. No,
Anything but themselves.
Anything but themselves.
This has a lot to do with the whole savior victim
growing up.
This type of behavior is directly related to being in a victimhood mindset where they don't think that they can do anything, so they just attach themselves. And of course this has to do with addiction as well. And like I mentioned when we were in the at that part of the conversation, this is a coping mechanism for dealing with something that's missing. You know, a lot of the time. I'm not saying that there can't be a good time playing some video games and that you shouldn't do that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if we're picturing a person who's locking themselves in a room for like 6 to 8 hours a day at night or whatever, and they're sitting there on a screen playing video games, I mean, that's not a very healthy mindset to be in. Something is very wrong there, and you are doing some significant damage to yourself. But if you're happy living that life, go right ahead. You're not hurting anybody else, and what you do with your own property, that's up to you. And that, you know, so, but I'm just saying, as one human to another, I care about that kind of person. I want to help them. And if there's a way to help them, sometimes it hurts to address the thing that you don't want to look at. And if you're having these struggles, you've got to start looking at those things that are holding you back, because there's something there that should be, that's not. And you're not fulfilled. You're not fulfilling your own destiny. And it's no way to live. It really isn't. The world is a beautiful place. You should go out and experience it. You can make good relationships with people. Maybe you're in a bad place, or maybe you're struggling with some depression, but it can be a very consuming lifestyle. And yeah, so
I'll give
sorry,
you.
took it away.
I thought of the perfect, real quick, the perfect way to address what I was trying to articulate about helping someone. It's not wrong to help someone, but the way you help someone is you help them to help themselves. You don't do it for them. You don't just bail them out. You empower them with knowledge, resources, skills, whatever that may be, so that you're teaching them to fish rather than just throwing them a fish every single day, because that's and that's what the government does with welfare and things like that. That's not empowering anyone. That's just creating dependent slaves, codependent slaves. So that's it. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, great point. I'll give a piece of advice, something that's practical and can be useful for someone in the self-development, arena. And this helps me. And this is a continual journey, this process of reaching, stabilizing homeostasis and balance in one's life, right? And this is understanding the elements. This is also, pretty big in animism and paganism. Understanding the elementary, foundational principles in nature itself, right? And in us, right? Earth, air, water, fire. These all correlate to a certain aspect of the individual, not only, the external world, but also internally, right? Air is the intellect. Water is emotions. Earth is the body. Fire is willpower. And then you have spirit, of course, right? That life force energy. So when we look at our behaviors, our ritual, what we do on a day-to-day basis, and I'm telling you, there's something powerful, journaling every day, your actions that you perform, right? In the morning, drink coffee, etc. You go down the list. Then you can start to see patterns, and you can categorize those patterns in correspondence to the elements itself. So you can see if someone is playing video games all the time, right? That there is energetically, this is what the elements are. They are aspects of energy, right? You see that you got a lot of earth and, possibly air. You're missing care and fire and willpower, drive and motivation. So you can balance the energies out. You can balance the polarity of energy within oneself. It's extremely useful. And I'm just grazing over the topic, but something that can be applied and utilized on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Because the video games, you're not creating any real change in the world by doing that. And ironically, they give you achievements, right? You unlock achievements that don't count for shit in the real world. When you could actually be like James, you were talking about, you're not hurting anyone, and that is true. There's worse things you could be doing with your time. At least you're not jamming a needle into your arm or something like that. My dad used video games as a drug, an escape for many years as he was depressed, and honestly, I'm grateful that he went that route instead of going to drugs and alcohol or something like that, something a lot more self-destructive. But in the same vein, you're not hurting anyone, but you're also not helping anyone. You're not contributing to creating more freedom in the world. You're not giving your gifts, whatever those may be, and making the world a better place.
That's the kicker. And the current human condition is one of tyranny and slavery. So for the individual, it's hard to get in a balanced state, because, or even if it's possible, sure, you can be balanced, but yet, balanced, you might want a little more fire, because we need to go public. We need to talk about freedom and natural rights and all this kind of shit. So very important. Someone that is inactive and stagnant, you can look at it as one way, not contributing, to any type of activation of one, bettering their lives, but also helping the human family, the interconnected, the one of humanity and on this planet.
Right, because on one hand, we don't want to go and coerce people into doing things, but on the other hand, it's like, well, we're we're in a pretty bad way right now, and there's a line where, you know, we're just talking about how much time are you spending in kind of an escapist, you know, doing your guilty pleasure escapist type of stuff. There's kind of a line where it's like what Will's saying, where we all live on this rock together and we all contribute together to the outcome of our condition here. And what are you doing? And if you're living in a complete like escapist mentality, you're actually, yeah, we don't have the right to tell you not to, like, you're not hurting anybody. What right do we have to get in the way of you using your property the way that you want? But at some point you got to be like, well, dude, you're not standing up and saying no to these psychopaths that want to enslave us, that want to put us in cages or worse. So Logan, I think that kind of goes to like your point where it's like, you know, you're not helping anyone. Sure, you're not helping yourself, but you're not helping anyone else either. And I think that's a part of nature too, is like, no matter how hard you try to escape, there's no escaping the correspondences that we share with one another. Like, that's just not going to happen. If you can find a way to do it, by all means, let us know. But like, it's just not in the cards.
Yeah. It's usurping the divine masculine of action and, you know, being a force of truth, you wielding the sword of truth in reality.
Yeah, I guess it just comes down to, you know, doing things, having some restraint, having a good time, and like having those pleasurable things where you can have some fun. If that's how you blow off some steam, it's not the worst way to blow off some steam is to, you know, play some Assassin's Creed or some Halo or whatever on a weekend night, whatever, you know. I'm not your daddy. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but it's just like there comes a point where it's actually harmful. Yeah.
Very synchronistic. This topic right here, I'm going to give a shameless plug. This aligns perfectly with my upcoming presentation at the Funnel 3 conference. The title of it is called Internal Ecology, the Art of Living Wisely. Internal ecology, right? Our internal environment.
Excellent. You were supposed to give that presentation at Shattering the Illusion.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this presentation goes kind of nicely with the revolt against the modern world and the return to nature. So.
Yeah. Awesome.
And I guess while we're at it, we've mentioned mind control quite a bit throughout this conversation as well. And for the Funnel 3 conference, I'll be presenting Trivium Hacking, mind control and how it contributes to the slave system.
It's going to be a hot one.
Oh, yeah. Very excited for that.
And before the stream is over, we'll throw up the promo for that. But Jerry, you were about to say something, my dude. What's up?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Funnel 3, guys. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Anything else, Jerry?
Great questions, Jerry. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said. Inaction is really going to get you nowhere. Like when a wheel is spinning fast and, you know, it's going to keep going forward. Like the bicycle wheel, right? If someone spins at it, right.
Forward
so momentum. It's, you know, it's just getting over the hump, the beginning, getting over the fear, the adrenaline, you know, those, just like anything else, right? When you start, you know, you're going to feel a little awkward.
Yeah. Life is the wheel, right? Life is the wheel. The wheel is going to spin whether you like it or not. Your mentality is what's underneath the wheel. If you have a shit mentality, you're in the mud, the wheel is just going to spin. You're not going to get anywhere. But if you got a solid, firm grasp on reality and you got some solid foundation, some pavement underneath that wheel, and you're going to soar. You're going to fucking fly. You're doing wheelies. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Inertia to momentum. And like what you're saying, James, you know, principles, natural law. This is where the animism, the animistic perception, perspective keeps you grounded in first principles and natural law. And it's a beautiful and a great mindset to be in.
Yeah. Jerry, thank you so much for calling, man. And if I hope to hear back from you soon, man.
Awesome. Glad to be a part of your first call-in show. So
Yeah. Caller number 2,
Pretty-
Jerry.
woohoo.
I've been seeing Jerry hopping on, doing the videos with the One Great Workers on Chris Jansen's show.
Yeah, it's another thing. Like the people you surround yourself with, you're either surrounding yourself with some conscious individuals that's going to help you grow further, which is the whole purpose of life, right? Or you're going to surround yourself with people who are, for slavery. So
Yeah,
That's
man.
right. That's right.
Excellent.
The One Great Work Warriors. Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, awesome. Well, Jerry, we'll talk again soon, man. Thank you.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Take care,
Later,
man.
brother.
So yeah, anyone else want to call in? Now's the time. Go to freeyourmindany.com/call. Otherwise, we're just going to work on wrapping it up. We've been at it for almost 2.5 hours now, so I think we're doing great, guys. What do you guys think?
Yep.
Fantastic conversation. I'm really digging it.
Yeah,
Very happy with how it turned out. We've covered lots of great points. All of you guys, man.
what is that?
Yeah, for
Speaker?
sure. Oh, that's the birds outside.
The birds.
I got the window open.
The birds. It's for the birds.
We're like, you guys talking about animism in there? I got some things to say about nature.
I'm living in the concrete jungle. Birds and the chickens. I'm on that Pacific time, so it's still daylight over here and stuff. So
Oh. All right. So we have coming up. Hold on. Yep. Coming up in June, actually, just 2 weeks from now.
Mhm.
Okay. So 2 weeks from now, we're gonna have the Freedom Under Natural Law 3 conference. And this time, well, what you're the guy. You take it away. You tell the
Yeah.
people.
Cool. Yeah, right on. Yeah, June 24th and 25th of this year, 2 weeks away, we have the Funnel 3 Freedom Under Natural Law Conference. And this one, the title is The Trivium. So, we plan that with the 3. It's knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, a free online event for truth discovery, higher consciousness, empowerment, and manifesting freedom. Got another killer lineup. Logan Hart is going to be participating in this event. And it's going to be great. It's the Trivium. So we have some people on there that are probably going to be testing, what people think and, the information that they hold, so we don't have to agree with everyone, but it's going to be a very interesting, high impact conference. And it's, free to register. Go to freedomundernaturallaw.com. And I'm looking forward to it. So, shout out to the funnel organizers. Everyone's putting in the good, hard work, and we're going to keep it going.
Yeah, very excited about this. Very honored to be, presenting amongst such legends. And I definitely not overhyping. I definitely think this presentation is going to be the best work that I've done yet. So
Excellent.
Love it.
I'm excited to see everyone else's as well.
Fuck yes. I'm going to be at Porkfest during, but I'm going to be able to catch the replays. But,
Oh yeah.
So it's going to be epic, folks. So Will, you've been doing funnel now for a couple of years.
Mhm.
And it's just gotten, oh my God,
Exponentially better.
holy shit. Like, yeah, it's gotten so much, like just every time it's just bam, bam, bam. You guys have definitely come a long way since the first one. So thank you for doing this consistently.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's kind of the goal, evolve even in these conferences. So we're going to have some new features, some new layouts. It's going to be fun. We're going to be streaming to, I believe it's 9 platforms. And of course, there will be replays, and everything will be available on the website as well, freedomundernaturallaw.com.
Awesome. So we'll look forward to that for sure. And but yeah, so I guess that pretty much does it, right? Logan, tell people where to find you. Actually, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sure. Yeah, you can check out thewizardfactory.com. It's a good centralized hub for everything. But mostly, I would promote my content via YouTube. Mostly is where I'm primarily focusing, growing there. I have a weekly live show. I do a podcast and some short videos. Got a lot of different types of stuff. Pretty much something there for everyone, but all about the spiritual tools and mindsets for living more empowered in your own life. So definitely check that out. Thewizardfactory.com, and follow me on social media and especially YouTube.
Excellent. Will?
Yeah, you can go to, I always refer people, go to my linktree/Will Keller. You can get to all my social medias. You can get to my presentations, naturalfreedomleague.com, and also on the onegreatworknetwork.com.
Those both Logan's and Will's link trees are down there in the show description.
Perfect.
Right now. I included them in the show descriptions for this evening. All right. So, all right, that does it, guys. How about it? Let's call it a night.
Successful first call-in show, man. That's great.
Yeah.
That's excellent, man. Fantastic conversation. I mean, it's always a pleasure, conversing with you guys, man. Some really good quality stuff. Excellent points. So definitely one for the books or the net.
For sure. Yeah. Yep. I can't express my gratitude for you guys being here. I can't express it enough. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you. Just thanks a lot.
Thank you too, man. I love what you're doing. Really appreciating what you're putting out.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, likewise. Well, I'll catch you guys around the bend. All right.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you like the video, share it with a friend, all that good stuff.
So that does it for me. My name is James Cordiner. My guest, I want to let you guys shout out your stuff one more time, please. Will?
Linktree/Will Keller, naturalfreedomleague.com, freedom_naturallaw.com, and the onegreatworknetwork.com.
Yep. Thewizardfactory.com, and you can also follow me on social media. I'm very active there as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys, and we'll catch you around. Love you all.
Much love. Take care.
Peace.
Because there's a handful of people actually run everything. That's true. It's provable. Not
It's
conspiracy.
all about control. To them we just cattle, numbers, battling each other while they creeping in the shadows, scheming, plotting, clocked in your every move, locked in your mind, brainwashed until it's rocking. Got the population operating as they want them, symbolically mocking them, thinking nothing can stop them. So open your eyes to the lies of the evil, the poison in the minds and the lives of your people. And every time they lead you down a line to deceive you, and by then it's always too late to see through the veil that they hide behind, cause your third eye is blind. Better take a stand, we running out of time. Ain't nobody coming to save us, fuck what you had in mind. Arm yourself with the truth and jump behind the battle line. Can we turn it around? Yeah, it's possible. Divided we'll all fall, but united we're unstoppable. This is for the world, this is for the masses, attached to the strings being pulled by puppet masters. This is for the youth, searching for the proof, keep on looking for the clues, I'll provide you with some truth. This is for the ones waking up from the spell, beginning to discover themselves. Yeah, this is for the youth, searching for the truth, keep on looking for the clues, I'll provide you with some proof. This is for the world.